June 24th. And we will begin with, let's get here. Oh, we got to do the roll call.
Trustee Heinrich. Here. Trustee Brasted. Here. Trustee Reinert.
Here.
Trustee Gamache.
Here.
Trustee Jepson.
Here.
Trustee Meisner.
Here.
There's 6 of us here today. Approval of the minutes from the HRA board meeting of May 27th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jepson and seconded by Commissioner Brasted. Our, excuse me, trustees. I'll get this right. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. I don't have any chair's remarks this morning, so we'll move right into the ACHRA Management Committee report. And Tanya.
Thank you, trustee. I always write that down on my piece of paper. The first thing that we spoke about, and Shane's here to give you an update, we took your input on the senior housing budgets and made some adjustments. So I'm going to turn it over to Shane, and he can give you an update on that and just an overview again on the 4 senior buildings.
Okay. Welcome, Shane.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and trustees. Let's see if I can remember that. Thanks for hearing about the 4 senior projects again. This is an update to the meeting that we had with the committee on June 10th. And I'll go through a brief overview of what we went through that day for the benefit of others who may be watching or listening. And then we'll talk about changes that came out of that meeting and some recommendations on proposed rent for the project and capital budgets. So the Anoka County HRA owns 4 projects, roughly 50 units each, 1 in Ham Lake, 1 in Ramsey, 1 in Centerville, and 1 in Oak Grove, Willows, Savannah Oaks, Chauncey Barrett Gardens, CBG, I will say sometimes, and the Oaks of Lake George. They were built in the late 90s and early 2000s to address senior housing needs for those areas. They were financed with bonds that were pledged both by the local community and or the HRA levies in those respective communities. Each year, that's why we're here, we do a budget process where staff from the Anoka County HRA and the Great Lakes Management Organization, which is the manager that you've all hired to manage those properties, and Ellers get together and we try to best plan the budgets and rent increases for the project, and then you all decide on that formally. So what we did on June 10th in the initial meeting was proposed a rent increase for the projects at 3% annually as the leases come to renewal. And during that meeting, there was some discussion about the capital needs and how to best plan and finance those things. And so there was discussion, although not action or anything like that, relative to keeping the rent at 3% for 2 of the projects that are kind of doing okay financially, and then increasing the rent at Chauncey Barrett Gardens to 4.5% to address some capital needs and operational challenges that one has, and the lack of levy support because of the size of the community there. And then also respectively on the other end of the spectrum to reduce the rent increase to 1.5% at the Willows at Ham Lake, because there is levy support there and that project is performing better financially and the debt is soon to be paid off on the project, so they won't have a mortgage payment, so to speak. So we've reflected those changes in the attachments in the budgets, and you all can consider that at the meeting here today. But the projects are very well occupied. You can see that they're 96+% occupied. We consider 95% occupied as full, so these are long-term tenants. There's not a lot of turnover there, and if there is turnover, they fill up very quickly. Operating expenses and maintenance costs and capital needs have been a challenge for all of these, and they are for all apartment projects and all homes, as many people are homeowners. And so all that stuff is going up, although recently that has started to moderate a little bit on some of the projects that I'm working on. We're not seeing the rapid increases on inflation, and a few of the projects that I work on have seen a little tick down in some pricing, which is good. I think it's a good sign for as we look forward on budgets like this. So I've updated some of the financial summary tables in the attachments, in particular one that talks about the per unit costs and just kind of a summary overview sheet that tries to benchmark the projects against each other. And you can see, again, just how different they are. They're different ages, they're different communities, there's different levy support, they've had different investment over time. So there's quite a bit of variability in them, and they all need to be treated a little bit differently. And I think that's reflective of your comments on how we should maybe change the rent and do it not all at the same 3%, which is certainly appropriate. So with that, again, I'd be happy to go into any of the detail that you'd like in any of the memos, but we've, the main changes from our meeting on June 10th have been the difference in rent increases. The only other appreciable change that we made is to stretch the capital improvements out for Chauncey Barrett Gardens to reduce negative cash flow at the end of the day and push that out to 2029 when the debt could be refinanced and you could spread the cost of those capital improvements out over a longer period of time. But that debt isn't, we call it, debt isn't callable is the term until 2029. So we gotta kind of hold it together for a few more years. So there's that. And the only other to-dos on our list are to, we've got an upcoming meeting with Willows of Ham Lake in early July here to talk to their council about the joint powers agreement. That needs to be updated because the debt is being paid off, and there's some things in that contract that could be clarified as to what happens with the project and the process and things like that. So we've got that going on. And then the Chauncey Barrett Gardens capital needs to be closely watched as we plan for what would happen with that project in the future. And then the only other update I would mention from the June 10 Management Committee meeting was there was a discussion about the future of these projects and should they be continued to be owned by the Anoka County HRA, or should something else be done? You know, sale, refinance, some other partnership, something like that. And I know it's the intent of staff to bring that discussion to you all, you know, after the budget process is done. And you can think about Willows of Ham Lake, you can think about Chauncey Barrett and the other two as well. But those are the two more unique ones now that they're starting to time out from their debt coming up here. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions at this point in time? Does the trustee want to make a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by trustee Brasted. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by trustee Jepson. So we're, the rent increases, there's three different, or two of the buildings are the same percentage increase. One is Willows of Ham Lake is at 1.5 and Chauncey Barrett is at 4.5, and the other two, Savannah Oaks and Oaks of Lake George, are at 3%. Thank you for listening and looking at that. Oh, Commissioner Jepson.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make, there's a lot of information here. And though we don't have questions in this moment, there was a large discussion and lots of questions being asked and an understanding and appreciation for the complexity of this. So I just want to make it known that we're not just blindly going into this with this decision. And we do have very robust conversations apart from this specific meeting. So just want to make that clear.
Trustee Meisner, did you have a question?
Oh, no, I just want to make sure that you saw
Okay.
Trustee Jepson.
Anyone else? I'm not sure. Is this a roll call vote? That's what I thought. Roll call vote.
Trustee Brasted.
Aye.
Trustee Reinert.
Aye.
Trustee Gamache.
Aye.
Trustee Jepson.
Aye.
Trustee Meisner.
Aye.
Trustee Heinrich.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Thank you again for the hard work.
Thanks, Shane.
We'll move down to management report, mutual termination agreement with Graco.
Yeah, so just for your consideration, you guys discussed it at the June 10th meeting, but this would be authorizing me to enter into a cancellation agreement or mutual termination agreement with Graco, and they would pay that funds back that you had given them.
Do I have a motion on this one?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Brasted. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Reinert. Any discussion? Is this a roll call? Okay. This is a roll call vote.
Trustee Reinert.
Aye.
Trustee Gamache.
Aye.
Trustee Jepson.
Aye.
Trustee Meisner.
Aye.
Trustee Heinrich.
Aye.
Trustee Brasted.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Item, the number, okay, so we've got the mutual agreement that we just took care of.
Yep,
So
yep.
that's just a separate one, okay. Then item number 3 is the Duffy Development Company.
Yep, Chair. This is my recommendation, or the group's recommendation, for the 3 applicants or proposals we received for the Columbia Heights redevelopment site, to choose Duffy Development Corporation to sell and have me be able to enter into a purchase agreement and other documents so that we can sell the property to them and they can go into the Minnesota Housing tax credit round. So it's just formally approving them as our developer.
Questions? Trustee Meisner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I know we talked about this again in the actual committee meeting. So this is, like you're saying, to approve the funding or for vetting for the funding. But the actual details, because we had kind of just a first blush proposal of what it might look like, but that's going to be fluid. Like the actual design of what this looks like.
Correct. They'll have to go
Okay.
through engineering and other things to determine that they can do what they are proposing to do, or they may need to make some changes to it. They had in their proposal to have a townhome, sort of row of townhomes along the one street and then have a building up on the hill where there's building now.
Yep.
But whether or not engineering and stuff will allow that, we don't know 100%. I met with their estimators on construction and things, and they said there'll be a lot of dirt work, a lot of moving dirt there. But they had the proposal had the biggest number of units, and whether they're able to do the townhomes or not, they're going to do the 60 units one way or the other, either in one building or in a building in the townhomes.
Yep. And I know I mentioned this in the committee, and, just for me, my 2 cents worth is like, I do want as many units as possible. And at the same time, I know the difference between the original proposals was the, I guess, the office space for wraparound services and like supportive services, but I think that is also very important. So that's the only thing that I don't want to see slip away. And I think that this Duffy had like the least office space designated for that, if my memory serves me. But my point was, like, it's not set in stone, and I was like, great, so we can still kind of work on that.
Yeah, Chair, Trustee Meisner, I've already had a preliminary conversation with Duffy staff about that, and we'll be working through that too, just to make sure that they're right sizing the space that they need to provide services for they're proposing 11 supportive units and then another 5 that are kind of the high priority need disabled. And he said typically the disabled group meet with their support staff or their support people in their units. And so they may not need as much space for them as they might need for the other.
Okay.
But they were definitely open to doing, whatever we need them to do, essentially.
Yeah, no, thank you so
They
much for
get
that.
it. They get it. And I think I told you guys at the meeting that I had our human services review the applications, and our human services staff selected them as being the most responsive in their answers to the questions that we asked about how you're going to serve people and how that's all going to be done. So they'll figure out the space, whether we have to tell them to do more or not, but they'll figure it out.
Yeah,
So.
thank you.
So this, we probably still have to have approval from the city on any kind of, because it's a bit of a change, depending on what they come up with. So but we have had some good conversations with the city staff.
Yes, Chair, other trustees. We've had preliminary conversations with city staff. The city has already passed a resolution that kind of understands the thought process of what we're going to be doing, which is redevelopment of the site. And they're very open to seeing the redevelopment happen and open to having another curb cut and some other things that are going to help the project as well. But yeah, the Duffy will have to go through all the normal city processes that any other developer would. This just gets us to the point where we can enter into a purchase agreement and other documents so that they can submit their application to Minnesota Housing for tax credits, which is the bigger chunk of the funding for the building.
Good.
So it's similar to the sand project that we talked about in previous weeks. It's kind of, we need to get certain things in place and signed for them to get the points they need in those processes. So this is just the first step. They'll have a whole bunch more things they're going to be needing to do and get final engineering and get other things that'll happen and get all their city approvals too.
Excellent. Do I have a motion? Or did we already get one?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Jepson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Meisner. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, roll call. Roll call vote.
Trustee Gamache.
Aye.
Trustee Jepson.
Aye.
Trustee Meisner.
Aye.
Trustee Heinrich.
Aye.
Trustee Brasted.
Aye.
Trustee Reiner.
Aye. And that passes unanimously. I go back up to the agenda.
I
Was
don't
that the
believe
last one on?
Yeah, I
that
believe
was-
that's it. That's everything. Mhm.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Tanya, and thank you for all the hard work on the stuff with the housing budget and all this other work that you're doing so well.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Any other
It's a lot of
business?
fun, so
That's good.
I know I'm a geek, but it is fun. So.
Anything else to come before the board? Seeing none, we're adjourned.